What's up, everybody? This is Eddie with Flex Machine Tools. Hey, and welcome to this episode of Flex and Friends, a videocast experience series where I get to sit down, hang out, chat, and pick the brain of some of the industry's loudest, proudest, best, brightest, most passionate, and profound thought leaders. And we get to talk about everything, you guessed it, manufacturing. So today I'm super excited because we have a real OG in the backstage link. This guy is not only a Hall of Famer currently, he is a two-time Hall of Famer. You can see him in the Association of Manufacturing Excellence's Hall of Fame, as well as the Industry Week Magazine Hall of Fame. And we're going to get to know this gentleman very, very well today. So we're going to bring on the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, all of the above, Harry Moser. Hey, let's bring him on in. Harry, what's going on? You are officially in the Flex and Friends video cast. How you doing today, my man?
Everything's great, Eddie. I haven't had one of these start off with more excitement and passion than this. This is great.
Well, hey, man, I got to make sure that we match the tone because you bring a lot to the table, and we're going to really dive deep into all the amazing things that you're doing within the industry, outside of the industry, all above, up, down, slantways, sideways, all of it. So with that, you're obviously a really popular guy. You're very well known for your work all over the industry and for quite some time now. But you already know how we roll, man. We want to get to know you personally and professionally. So one, thank you so much for coming today, but let's dive right in. We need to get to know Harry personally and professionally. What do you have for us, sir?
So personally, the word work is frequently heard. So a combination of workout. So I play tennis, I lift weights, I run, and I promised that I'd make clear I'd flex here because I'm on Flex. Okay.
Yes. What a healthy man. I love
it. and I'm wearing my manufacturing is cool T-shirt. Okay. So I figured I'd fit the ambiance here. So
you're killing it. I love it.
So working out is I've worked out every day. I've missed 10 days working out in the last 23 years.
Wow.
So it's typically an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. So that's that side. Family, got a son who's a professor at University of Georgia that's going to win the national championship in college football this year. And nice. I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Then the biggest thing in town was Singer sewing machine. And my father ran about a third of the factory. It was 2.5 million square feet, 5,000 workers, biggest factory in the world of any kind in its day. And I went past 20 years ago and it's all gone. Everything's imported. So the city, the state, the country had lost that. And throughout my career, I sold machine tools and foundry equipment, and industry after industry, company after company that I wanted to sell something to, they went out of business before I could get to them because the imports wiped them out because somebody from somewhere else was making it cheaper and shipping it in here. So I, from a personal background and with my belief in manufacturing, that manufacturing is absolutely essential to the country, that motivated me to eventually form the Reshoring initiative to counteract that trend. So professionally, I have my engineering degrees from MIT, an MBA from the University of Chicago. I've been in manufacturing for 55 years. That's even longer than you, Eddie. And probably the highlight of my career was I was president of what was called Charmy, so EDM machines, Charmy. It became Agi Charmy and now is GF Machining Solutions. So I ran North America for 22 years, retired in 2010, and founded the nonprofit Reshoring initiative to counteract that trend that I saw happening in Elizabeth.
Got you. Which we're going to dive into that, but we got some love in the chat box. We got to give some shout outs here. First and foremost, Audrey Thomas. Hi, everybody. Can't wait to learn something new. Girl, you're going to learn today. We got the right guy for you here. And then also, looks like we got Gail Robertson. She says, hello, I love Harry Moser, and not in a creepy way, but wow, such a bright light in manufacturing, a bright light indeed. I mean, he started the episode flexing. What do you expect, yo? And then also, Gail says again, love the shirts, guys. I need to up my T-shirt game. Hey, shout out to all my manufacturing mafia. And then Harry hits you with the shirt. Manufacturing is indeed cool. So thank you all for jumping in that chat box. Wanted to give a little bit of love, Harry. So, hey, you're already killing it. We just started. But speaking of killing it, and I know you just briefly mentioned the Reshoring Initiative, we got to dive into that. What is your mission? What are you doing to help manufacturing? Dump it on me, man.
Yeah, the mission is to bring 5 million manufacturing jobs to the U.S. from offshore, combination of reshoring, which is done by U.S. companies, think General Motors, and FDI, foreign direct investment done by foreign companies, think Toyota or Siemens. And the reason 5 million jobs is that's what it will take to balance the trade deficit. So the trade deficit this year will be about $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. So our exports are 1 trillion less than our imports, and balancing that, either importing less or exporting more, will require 5 million manufacturing jobs, which is a 40% increase from our current 12 million. So my objective is to increase U.S. manufacturing by 40%. That will achieve self-sufficiency. So right now, there's all kinds of things. It's hard to get. We had all kinds of problems with PPE during the early stage of the pandemic, chips, all kinds of stuff that we're not self-sufficient in. We balance the trade deficit, we'll be self-sufficient.
Solid. No, this is great. And that kind of answers the question as to why it's so important. So outside of closing that gap, like really, why is what you're doing at Reshoring Initiative so vital? And you might be a little biased, and that's okay. You're allowed to be that here.
If you're not biased, you're not committed, I'd say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So fill us in, man.
So first, let me tell you what we do. We help manufacturers 3 or 4 ways. First, we track the trend, so we know that this year over 200,000 manufacturing jobs will be reshored or FDI'd, and so companies can say, "Wow, if that many are coming back, maybe we could do it." So we break the barrier. We get them to believe it's possible. We provide the TCO, total cost of ownership estimator, which is an online software that helps companies. Right now, most companies look at the ex-works price or FOB price. I can buy it in US for 10, I can buy it in China for 6, I'm going to get it in China. Yeah? Whereas this adds in duty, freight, packaging, carrying cost of inventory, intellectual property risk of stocking out, pandemic, and now maybe 10's better than 6. So we help them see that. In fact, when they do the analysis, they will conclude that about 20 to 30% of what they are now importing, they would be more profitable if they brought back. So that they don't have to lose money. They can make as much or more profit. Just do the math and see that. We have methods to help them analyze better customers to sell to. So if there's a shop or a company, they're making widgets or they're making fans or pumps, something, we can tell them who the biggest importers of these things are. And then we train them to use our TCO estimator to convince that importer to buy from them instead of continuing to import. Or that's the import substitution program. We can do similar things for the states, taking a sort of a bigger view of the whole thing. The reason it's important, you asked, economic growth. The best multiplier effect is in manufacturing. The R&D is done by manufacturing. Income equality. A lot of complaints about more rich people and a lot fewer middle class. A lot fewer middle class is because 5 million manufacturers lost their job, because that's a good solid middle class job. So income equality, very important. The federal budget. Right now, we're looking at trillions of dollars of federal budget deficit, state deficits, et cetera, et cetera. Best way to do that is put people back to work, let them pay some taxes, don't have to give them any welfare. People talk a lot about ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So companies are supposed to be showing their social responsibility by cleaning up the atmosphere, behaving properly, et cetera. And the best way for most of them to do that is to bring manufacturing jobs, put them right there in Ohio, get people working again, give them a good job. Defense, the Defense Department puts out a report every year or two that says we can't find these materials, these products, these whatever, can't get them in the U.S. We can't even we have to go to China or Russia to buy them. That's not a good idea to be dependent on Russia for our Defense Department. So for all those reasons, wonderful to bring the work back here.
No, for sure. It looks like Gail has a juicy comment here. Let's see if we can get it now. How can we work together from a Canada, US, Mexico perspective? Hoping maybe Reshore in Canada will weigh in. And I'm here as part of the Canadian Association of Mold Makers too, and even Automate Canada as Janine Lesson. I'm going to mess that up. I apologize. Maybe taking off care of members. So nonetheless, Harry, what do you have to say? Like, how can we work together from a Canada, US, Mexico perspective? You're probably the expert on this, my guy.
So she's aware of this new group that was founded a couple of months ago called Reshoring Canada, and we've been advising them. A very impressive group. The leaders of it, Tony and Sandra, are ex-members of Parliament of Canada and Secretary of Commerce, that kind of thing of Canada. So very, very sophisticated people. And so we've been giving them advice. We're going to share some of our work and our tools so we can advance both more efficiently. We're also looking for eventually a reshoring Mexico, so that then we'll have reshoring North America and be able to go out and look for work to bring back from Asia to North America, some for Canada, some for the US, some for Mexico, to pull up the whole of North America. And these people in Canada that run Reshoring Canada, they've got the connections in Canada to do. I mean, I've done a good job. They're going to do a great job. So I'm really happy to be working with them. They've got the muscle to make stuff happen. So good question, Cal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I know Janine's doing some awesome, cool, fun stuff there. I had a conversation with her. So wonderful things. And I wanted to take a step back before we kind of get too far, because you mentioned this trade deficit. But one thing I think that people don't understand enough, and me including, and I think a lot of people watching this, why is the deficit so large for the government, companies, general workers? Like, why is this, Harry?
It's very simple. Our manufacturing cost, and therefore our prices, are too high. They're not competitive. I did a study of people who've used our TCO estimator, and I took 180 cases of China versus US. I plotted them, and typically the Chinese price is 70% of the US price.
Okay.
All right. And even after they pay duty and freight and get it over here, the landed cost is lower than our manufacturing cost. So companies look at that and they say, wow, my competitors are going there. They're buying it for 70 cents on a dollar. If I don't go there, I'm going to go out of business because they're lowering the price. And so companies went there. I mean, can I blame them for doing so? Some of what they went was a mistake, but much of what they took over there, if you and I had run General Motors or somebody, we probably would have done the same thing, because if Ford does it and Chrysler does it, you do it or you go out of business. And so our price is too high. Then the question is, why is the price too high? Why are we uncompetitive? And the answer is primarily that we do not have an industrial policy. You look at Germany, France, China, England, Japan. They have a team that's figuring out, how do we move the piece? How do we play chess, with our economy to make us more competitive? And the U.S. has refused to do that. They thought it was that the proper laissez-faire economic philosophy, let the market work it out. And I've had people tell me, if we don't do any manufacturing, that's okay. We'll do software. You can imagine how we're going to do in the military if there's nobody making castings and making steel and making everything.
I was about to say, what?
Not going to work. Anyway, so no industrial policy. And we've had what I'd call a deindustrialization policy. If you wanted to screw up our manufacturing, you'd have done the things we do. When we help some little country go democratic, we give them a lower duty shipping their stuff into the U.S. than they charge us on us shipping our stuff into their country, because we're trying to help their country. We've sacrificed our manufacturing to achieve our diplomatic objectives. Skilled workforce. We tell everybody they got to go to university, and we tell very few people that they should become a tool maker, a welder, or a precision machinist. And whereas in contrast, in say in Switzerland, 60% of the high school kids at the age of 16 go into an apprenticeship, a lot of them into manufacturing. So you get really smart kids with really very good basic education. They get extremely good training in the sector, tool making, welding, whatever it is. And we sort of more loosey goosey, and maybe 3% of ours go into some kind of a apprenticeship, mostly construction. The US dollar is too high. We're the reserve currency. So companies and countries want to store their money in the United States because it's safe. That forces up the value of the dollar and makes us a good place to be a bank, but not so good a place to be a factory. So we're not competitive. Our corporate tax rates for years were the highest. We don't have a value-added tax. A value-added tax, almost every country, when we ship our product to them, they put a 15% tax on it coming in, and their companies get a 15% credit when they export. We don't do either of those things. So we're more exposed to imports from the other countries, and we're less competitive trying to export to those other countries. So a whole series of things like this that the country has done that hurt manufacturing. And if as they reverse them, as I'm trying to get them to do, we'll do better. But it takes time to convince them. For companies, most of them look only at the price when they decide where to source. They don't look at total cost. They tend to be, U.S. companies are short-sighted. The Swiss, the Germans, Japanese, they'll buy equipment when they're slow because they want to always have the newest and the best equipment. Americans, when they're slow, they stop buying. We don't invest enough in workforce. We don't invest enough in automation. Workers have some responsibility. On the average, we're not as skilled as the Germans, and we don't bust ass the way the Chinese do. And so you either have to be really smart like the Germans, then you don't have to work quite so hard. You have to work really hard like the Chinese. But when you try and just sort of get along, it doesn't work so well. So we've got to decide one of those others. I'd recommend work smart.
No, I completely understand. And then Audrey Thomas coming in with an amazing comment that I couldn't support more. She says, yes, we need to put more value in trade schools here in the U.S. Harry, what do you feel about that comment?
I'm entirely in support of that. It's a combination of like community college seems to be where most of the training happens. High school, it used to happen, but most high schools can't get enough kids together to have the critical mass to justify the teacher and the equipment, everything. So community college winds up being the typical solution, but companies really have to take responsibility. I think 10, 20 years ago, companies assumed that society would provide them the workforce they needed. And now it's clear that society is not doing that. And so specifically, the companies have to work with a high school, work with a community college, recruit the students, and get them into ideally an apprenticeship program, like a 3-year or a skills-based program. But if not that, there are other methodologies. So instead of becoming a complete precision machinist that can mill, turn, grind, do everything, EDM, do everything, you get them and take 3 or 4 years to do that. You get them, and in 60 days or 90 days, you make them quite good at milling. And then later on, they can pick up turning, and later on pick up. That way they can make a decent income and support their family, and the company has someone to run the equipment. So schools are important, but doing it in the company has been proven in most countries to be the best solution.
For sure. And Audrey comes in again. She's learning all kinds of stuff. U.S. manufacturing folks need to break through the negative stigma associated with trade schools. That is what we need. And then also, Gail, on that specific topic, she says, how do we get parents to change? Because they often want their kids to be doctors, lawyers, astronauts, whatever it may be. So Harry, and that kind of goes into our next topic, is how can we respond to this? And let's start here with Gail's question. How do we get parents to change, Harry?
Yeah, I believe the government has the major responsibility.
Okay.
And it's a question of information. The government isn't really so good at doing things, but they're pretty good at getting information out. But on this subject, they do not get all the information out. So I can find on Department of Labor and Department of Education websites 15 or 20 sites that have a bar chart. Imagine, something like this. And here's the income of people that have no high school and then high school and then community college, and then bachelor's and master's and PhD. You've all seen the chart like that, and with a heading like $1 million more lifetime income with a bachelor's degree versus a high school degree. So the students, the guidance counselors, the parents, society, writers are inundated by this, right? Because you get it from the government, and then universities, everybody else prints it and pushes the same thing out. And what it should show, and I'm trying to get them to show, where they've got this bachelor's degree income here, they should have the average income of people that have passed an apprenticeship or that have 10 or more NIM certificates or something like that. Because when you do that study, that income is higher than the liberal arts degrees, maybe not quite as good as the engineering degrees, but definitely higher than the liberal arts degrees. So if the government would just include all the data and get that out to the students, to the guidance counselors, to the parents, then people would say, let's see, more income, no college tuition, no university debt, start making money tomorrow. Well, this starts to sound pretty damn good. I'm making money to get out of the basement at my parents' house and get out and get my own place and buy a car or a motorcycle, and life's coming together. For a lot of kids, that's a pretty damn good solution. Now, you miss out on the booze and the football games at the university.
Oh, darn.
You got your own life going ahead for you. So I'm convinced the biggest problem is recruitment.
Gotcha.
And that income data is awfully important. I've got something else I'm working on. You've probably all heard the sort of negative phrase, dark, dirty, and dangerous, describing manufacturing. That's why parents don't want to go into it. So we're working on an article that adds one more to that, disappearing, because one reason they don't want to go in is because they think all the jobs are going away to China. So why would you want to get trained to be a machinist if there aren't going to be any machining done here? Okay. So dirty and dark. I've got several of the trade associations sending me photos of the most beautiful, clean, bright shops to describe how nice it can be. Anybody out here who's hearing and has just an awesome picture of their place, including Flex, you got something, just a kick-ass picture, send it to me. It might make the article. So I'm going to use pictures to show that. I've got statistics that show that manufacturing has one of the lowest injury rates of all occupations. And in terms of disappearing, the number of manufacturing jobs for the last 10 years has been coming up. And specifically, right now is about 3 million higher than one would have predicted 10 years ago, because we're offshoring less and we're reshoring a lot more. So we're going to overcome those misapprehensions about the careers, which should help to get more of the kids getting in line to do the apprenticeships or go to the courses at the community college.
No, that's great. I think if we got passionate people like yourself and others making it happen, it surely will. And so even though we're talking about kind of the uphill battle that we're having, we know there are struggles, there are bottlenecks, there are different things that we need to specifically combat. Those are all obviously there. And Harry, I think we've hit on, really a significant amount of them. But moving forward to kind of create some silver lining, you being in the manufacturing world as long as you have been, you get to see a lot of really cool things, and you're probably up to date with a lot of trends currently happening. So in your opinion, what are some good trends that you're seeing within not only U.S. manufacturing, North American manufacturing, or specifically global manufacturing?
So I'll define good as being good for the United States or good for North America. Okay.
I support it.
Okay. And so certainly in terms of reshoring and FDI, so U.S. company bringing it back, foreign company bringing it here, when we started in 2010, in that year, 6,000 jobs were announced coming back. 2017, 180,000 in that year, driven by the tax and regulatory cuts. Fell off 2018, 2019 because of the trade war, business uncertainty. Picked up nicely to 160,000 in 2020. This year looks like 200 to 220,000, driven by companies seeing the impact of the trade disruption and saying that could happen to me. I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm bringing a portion, not all, but a portion of the work back to the United States. So that's a very good trend. I mentioned this study with the having 3 million more manufacturing jobs today than you would have predicted 10 years ago. We've seen some studies saying students are more interested in manufacturing than they used to be. We see investment rising in companies. There's more companies putting their money in, where they should, into people and into factories. So lots of favorable trends here. And at the same time, the rest of the world has started to catch our disease. Uh, I was at a meeting of the International Special Tooling and Machining Association. I used to be VP of the World Organization, and this may be 8 years ago. Country after country would get up, developing countries, developed countries, and they'd all say, nobody wants to go into manufacturing anymore in our country. They all want to go to university. They want to still study music and art and philosophy. The same thing you hear in the United States, but they're lagging 10, 20 years behind us. And now I read an article about a month ago about a Chinese factory owner. And what did he say? I can't find any workers anymore. None of them want to go into manufacturing. They all want to go to university. Okay, so that U.S. disease, you might say, is impacting the rest of the world, and that's good. So their workforce is coming down a little bit, and our workforce is starting to recognize the value. The pendulum swinging back, and so we've got some good opportunities.
That sounds seriously incredible, and it's good to know that there's that global perspective, and it's maybe not just us, because of course it's easy for us to focus on the problems that U.S. manufacturing, is focusing on for the most part. But no, this is great. And then you hit upon a little bit of a trend earlier, and I really like diving into this, especially with individuals who have the passion that you have. The prospective students and young adults, they're obviously not shifting towards that. I know Gail really mentioned it, love in the comments as well. But why should a prospective student or young adult even somewhat consider a career in manufacturing? Be biased as you want to be, my guy.
Well, first, you might have a career like Eddie's. That's not bad, right? Yeah,
I'm having fun.
A career like mine. I've had a great career in manufacturing. So first, incomes. Most people, income's important, and the incomes of a skilled manufacturing worker. So I'm not talking about a loader or unloader. I'm not talking a floor sweeper. I'm talking about a skilled toolmaker, welder, precision machinist. The incomes are similar to 4-year degree. Typically, to get that income involves some overtime. But the difference is, if you're a manufacturing worker, you're getting paid time and a half or double time for your overtime. And typically, the university graduate isn't getting paid. So I've worked 60, 70 hours a week all my life, and I think I only got overtime once for one day, all my life.
Yeah.
So, so you start making money sooner. You don't pay tuition. I did a study 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I had data on income as a function of age by degree, like English, history, engineering, and so on, and I had income of toolmaker apprentice graduates, and I compared the two over their lifetime of work, and I allowed the toolmaker always made more money than the English graduate, and I took half the difference and paid taxes with it, and the other half invested at 7% a year, and at the age of 49, the toolmaker had $1 million more lifetime income than the English graduate. So money is clearly a nice. How many guidance counselors have that? Nobody, none of them use it. They wouldn't understand it probably if I gave it to them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, upward mobility. There's over in Switzerland. I would take groups of apprentices there to see the apprentice system in Switzerland, and the vice presidents and presidents of the mid-sized companies, the 100, 500 person companies, typically started as apprentice, worked their way up, knew the product, the process, the employees, the customers, the product, knew everything, and they were the logical candidates to run the company, as opposed to bringing in an MBA that doesn't know anything about what's going on. So it works there. It can work here as long as everybody plays ball. Entrepreneurial opportunities. I did a study through the NTMA, National Tooling and Machining Association, the Association of Machine Shops and so on, and surveyed the owners and asked them, how did you obtain ownership of the company? And about half of them had started as an apprentice and eventually founded their own company or bought somebody else's company. So the chance to run your own company is quite good when you get a smart, aggressive person going into a field like manufacturing. There's something to be said for hands-on competence. So I did not do an apprenticeship. I'd be better engineer if I had. But doing an apprenticeship in anything to do with manufacturing, you get a ability to fix things and understand, deal at a mechanical with the car, with the house, with everything else,
Right.
and that's better than, in some ways, than the theoretical knowledge that I have. There's a satisfaction of making things, of being able to pick up something and say, I made that, and that's as good as anybody can make, and I'm really proud of what I did,
Mhm.
as opposed to someone who sits in, say, an insurance company and they shuffle papers all day around from inbox to outbox and do a little of this on the computer. So I think there's a lot of satisfaction there, personal satisfaction for the employee.
Right, right. And no, that all makes sense. These are things you hear, just say it again for the people in the back from the top of the mountains, man. Harry, you nailed it. And these are all wonderful things. And I think that this is a great effort towards, really sounding that alarm, turning the volume up to 11 and shining the light. And then additionally, so this is one of my favorite questions to ask individuals
Let
who
me
are,
let me bring up
obviously.
one thing
Oh
before you
yeah,
do.
go ahead, play. Let's go.
So one reason for companies to think about this is the risk of being cut off from offshore. Now we've seen temporary cutoffs with the boats, and the disruption at LA ports and so on. There's a risk. I read more about it today of decoupling by China. So I've got a sinologist friend, a China expert, and a year ago he started to talk about it, that China is so mad at us because of uh, Hong Kong, because of Taiwan, because of the Uyghurs, because of Trump, because of tariffs, that the government was thinking of telling their factories, you may not ship anything to the U.S. And you can imagine what would happen to our industry. Think automotive, with all the components that come in from China. If you all of a sudden you couldn't get any, and how long it would take you to get back in business. Companies would be going
Right.
bankrupt all over the country. So a
Mhm.
horrible possible situation. And then I read an article November 28th in Politico, so one of the top political analysis things. And there's a bill in the Congress to make some changes to make the U.S. more competitive. And it mentioned China, how to compete with China. And the Chinese official government responded and said, you passed that bill and we're going to stop shipping you stuff, including to your automotive industry. Okay.
Thanks.
So if you're a company owner, a big good sized company owner, and sit there and say, what would happen to my company? Would we still exist if China stopped shipping us for 6 months? Would we survive? Would we be able to replace? Because you can't just replace some of the components. You got to replace everything that you're getting out of China from getting it somewhere else, while all your other competitors are trying to go somewhere else to get all the components that they need. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I searched on decoupling from China, and I found 10,900,000 search sites where I could find that being talked about, and many of them that there were articles in Fortune, Forbes, Financial Times, The Economist, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a serious discussion. So I'm not saying it's likely or 50%, but if it's a 3% or 5% chance, and you own the company or you run the company, and it's going to go out of existence if that happened, I'd at least go to Harry's website, find the TCO estimator, do the calculation, bring back everything I can out of China now while you still got control.
No, like valid points. And I'm really glad that you brought that up because it's super relevant to everything that we've been discussing today. And then, really, the next thing that I love to know, I feel like we got to kind of look into the crystal ball, if you will. So, here we're gonna have you wave your magic wand and give us what your big claim is. So, what big trend or big happening within U.S. manufacturing do you think is going to really take this industry by storm in the next 10, 20 plus years? What do you
Well,
think?
I believe, I hope, I believe that the U.S. government will establish an industrial policy, like I talked about, that they will uh, take whatever action it takes to raise the water level so that all the boats can float, so that we can be competitive in automobiles and jet engines, in machined parts and castings, and get us competitive enough, and then let the market sort out which companies win, exactly which industries win. But right now we're at a condition where we're not competitive in the majority of those industries. So I see the U.S. government finally recognizing its failures and taking those actions, doing exactly what every other country does, and getting the whole thing going again. And if anybody's listening from the administration or from the congressman or senator, look forward to your call. We're here to give you the best advice we can.
There you go. He's a gentleman and a scholar. I don't care what they say. So, Harry, that's amazing. And then so we've gone above, beyond, up, down. We've gone all over the place, but really had an amazing conversation, and I'm super thankful for it. But lastly, because I know you're putting out content, you're obviously getting in everybody's Hall of Fame, which is to no surprise because you're an absolute gangster. But where can we get more info on not only Reshoring Initiative, but also keep up with all the exciting things that Harry is doing personally, speaking engagements, blogs? Where can we get that info, man?
So the website is reshorenow.org, so reshorenow.org.
Okay.
And I'm harry.moser@reshorenow.org. So email me, you go to the website, you can find all these services and tools and methodologies and data, they're all there. You can't find it, you email me and say, Harry, I can't find whatever you were talking about. Help me, Harry. Harry, we just reshored. Hey, I want to hear about it. Harry, we are thinking about reshoring. Let me help you. Harry, if you did reshore, you could apply to win the National Metalworking Reshoring Award, which has been issued for 4 years and will be awarded at IMTS, the 130,000 person machine tool show in Chicago in September of 2022.
Wow. So there's a little bit of hardware you can take home. So not only that benefit, but plenty others. And Harry, thank you so much again for not only your passion, your expertise, your insight, your guidance, all of the above. And then just additionally, just for continuing to shine your light, and then also letting us know where we can get more information. There we go. Manufacturing is cool because Harry said it was. And there are clearly some health benefits, but he's got a strong flex going on there as well. So really, Harry, just genuinely appreciate all the energy that you brought and the enthusiasm to this specific episode. Thank you. Big shout out to everybody who hopped in the comment section. It was so much fun and really appreciative for everybody. Harry, you all, and make sure you keep in the loop. Check us out at flexmachinetools.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're messing around a little bit of, Instagram. Hey, we're even on TikTok. So doing good things. But again, Harry, really the utmost respect and appreciation for you. And thank all those live viewers for checking out this segment live on Flex and Friends. Hey, you all stay awesome, stay flexing, and we will surely see you next time.
Bye, Eddie.